Work trip got extended, won't be back till Wednesday, love you. That's the text that did it, not the affairs, not the months of slow betrayal. That sentence, 7 words, casual as a grocery list, as if she were texting about traffic or dinner plans, as if she still believed she could say, love you, and I'd pretend not to smell his cologne on her luggage. I stared at the screen, bourbon glass halfway to my lips. My thumb hovered over the reply button, not trembling, not angry, just still. The kind of still that only comes after something inside you stops moving, not breaking, not burning, just done. I'd known for 2 weeks. Jim, not a friend exactly, more like a war buddy from the corporate trenches, called me after one of their sales conferences. Said he'd seen her. Said she wasn't alone. Then added, with that awkward loyalty older men have, look, you didn't hear it from me, but she's not who you think she is right now. She hadn't been for a while. I closed the message, set the phone down without replying, and opened my laptop. The screen glowed in the dim light of my office. One folder sat dead center on the desktop. Contingency plan, final. I clicked it. Everything I'd quietly built for the past 3 months opened in a clean, ruthless outline. Bank transfers, property documents, copies of the prenup, surveillance summaries, emails to lawyers never sent. Until now. I selected the draft to my attorney. Please initiate the process per our prior conversations. She's out of state. Timing is optimal. Subject line, initiate. I hit send. No shaking hands, no dramatic music, just a long sip of bourbon and the distinct sensation that something was finally aligning after years of quiet dislocation. Let me be clear. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm not interested in the usual pity-fueled chorus of you deserve better or how could she? Most of you listening already know. Betrayal doesn't come with thunder. It seeps in like mold. Slow. Smile. You don't scream when you find out. You don't flip a table or storm out into the night like some TV soap character. No, you check the locks. You read the fine print on your insurance. You verify your backup passwords. You move with the kind of patience only men over 60 truly understand, the kind of patience that builds graves with spreadsheets. And hey, if you're one of the 90% listening without hitting that follow button, maybe now's a good time to fix that. Because this isn't just a story. This is a blueprint. And the team bringing this to you, we've bled in these stories so you don't have to. I didn't respond to her text. I didn't ask where she was staying. I already knew. The Intercontinental in Phoenix, room 1417, checked in with her coworker under a booking linked to his frequent flyer profile. I had the screenshots, the billing summaries, the timestamps. She thought she was living in a soap opera. I was writing a war manual. The next morning, I moved my truck to my brother's garage, canceled the joint credit card, blocked the Amazon account. I wasn't about to pay for any more silk blouses she'd wear to someone else's hotel room. I set the thermostat to 62, packed a single bag, left the rest. I wasn't running. I was reorganizing. At 8:45 a.m., I walked into a bank downtown, presented the POA documentation, previously notarized and undisputed, moved every dollar that was legally mine into a separate account, froze the remaining assets pending review for irregular spending patterns. The banker, a young guy with clean cuffs and tired eyes, glanced at the file, then at me. Everything all right, Mr. Hanson? Everything's finally just fine, I said. By noon, the attorney confirmed receipt. You're ahead of the timeline, he wrote, and well prepared. I smiled, not because I felt victorious, but because preparation is the only peace you get in these situations. Emotion is a currency women like her spend freely. Guilt, tears, tantrums. But planning? That's the man's game. That's where we win. By evening, I was back home. The bourbon was still half full. Her perfume lingered in the hall like a ghost with too much pride to leave. I didn't touch anything. Just sat on the porch, watched the sunset. One neighbor waved. I nodded, a silent nod that probably said too much. There's a myth that men like me snap, that we lose it when our wives betray us, that we throw things or drink too much or beg. No. We wait, we build, we cut clean, and by the time you notice what's missing, it's already gone. I used to think the slow erosion was normal. 22 years together, some emotional corrosion is inevitable. You tell yourself stories to fill the cracks. She's just tired. It's work stress. We're just in a phase. You cling to the illusion like an old coat that doesn't fit anymore, but damned if you're throwing it away because it once kept you warm. The first sign was the perfume, not the kind I knew, not the lavender she wore on our anniversary last year or the jasmine from our honeymoon. This one was sharper, expensive, sexual even. Something marketed in boutiques where the lighting is dim and the sales girls don't look you in the eye. Then came the gym membership. I thought good for her, 58 and deciding to get healthier. That's something to celebrate. Until she stopped eating dinner with me, said she was fasting, needed protein shakes instead, started buying clothes from places that didn't send catalogs to our house. Then the late meetings began, the team brainstorms over wine at locations she never mentioned twice. I didn't argue, I didn't snoop, I just started noticing. She changed all her passwords in one weekend, even the Spotify one, a small thing, right? But when your wife of 2 decades suddenly locks you out of a shared playlist, it means something, not the playlist itself, the secrecy. Then the haircuts. The weekend errands that came with full makeup and a scent I didn't recognize. And a tone, that was the worst of it. Her tone mutated. She started talking to me like I was a coworker who'd missed the memo. Cold, clipped, transactional. Did you send in the insurance thing? Yes. I needed it by Tuesday. You said Friday. Well, I need it now. I nodded, said nothing, went to the garage and wrote it down in a spiral notebook I kept next to my old camping gear. June 14th, changed tone, impatient, wore full makeup to pick up groceries, was gone 2.5 hours. I logged every detail but never confronted. That's how you lose leverage. The moment you ask, you admit weakness. She either lies or worse, flips it back on you. I wasn't giving her that stage. Instead, I hired someone. Quietly. A man named Vic who worked in digital recovery. Came recommended by a friend who went through something similar with his ex-wife and her tennis instructor. Vic had the kind of voice that didn't rise above a murmur, wore the same black polo every meeting. He never asked why I wanted the data, just nodded, then got to work. He started with her tablet backups, then her work laptop, then her email, which she'd lazily forwarded through our shared server 3 months back. 3 weeks later, he dropped a USB drive on my desk. Nothing illegal, just deleted content. I opened it that night, bourbon in hand. A few calendar invites, unsent emails, and texts. What stood out? From her to someone saved as K. He's harmless. Doesn't even suspect. I'll tell him after this quarter. Just need to time it right. Harmless. It sat there on the screen like a tumor. I didn't flinch, didn't throw anything, didn't call her. I copied the message, pasted it into a document labeled chronology, saved it to 2 separate hard drives. Then I stood up, went to the mirror, and looked at myself. I looked the same. Same lines on my face, same scar on my jaw from that dumb bike accident in '89. But something had changed. I realized I wasn't angry. I was ready. That one word, harmless, didn't hurt me. It clarified things, made the rest of the puzzle snap into place. This wasn't confusion anymore. It was geometry. The woman I married was gone. In her place stood a strategist, a gambler, and what she was gambling with was me. She thought silence meant ignorance. She mistook stillness for surrender. I started carrying a different notebook in my jacket, black leather, discreet. It held dates, locations, phrases, times she left the house, who she was meeting, every single detail backed up with a timestamp, a cross-reference, a location ping from the app Vic installed on her iPad through the shared Apple ID she forgot I still had. She once looked at me during dinner, while eating salmon she barely touched, and said, "You've been so calm lately. It's like you've mellowed out." I smiled. Just getting older. Priorities change. She nodded, completely unaware that she was eating across from her own reckoning. Not an angry man, not a victim, just a bookkeeper. A man who'd accepted what was coming and decided to author it himself. And from that moment, the end wasn't a possibility. It was a process. His name was Kyle. Of course it was. Vic called one morning, speaking like he was reading a grocery list. The number belongs to a Kyle Henderson, regional sales director. No spouse, no kids. Travel schedule overlaps hers on 4 separate occasions over the past 6 months. Same cities, same hotels, and sometimes the exact same suite number. I didn't say anything right away. Just let the name sink in. Kyle. The kind of name you give a Labrador or a man who wears loafers without socks. I imagined his LinkedIn profile by probably a headshot on a yacht, captioned with something like, "Leadership isn't a position, it's a mindset." I pictured the way she must have looked at him, with that soft smugness she used to save for important people. He probably made her feel young again, relevant, desired. She probably made him feel like a champion, a woman with a house, a life, a husband too stupid to notice. What a thrill it must have been, adultery with built-in ego inflation. I asked Vic for details. He delivered, as always. Flights to Dallas, Phoenix, Seattle. He'd cross-referenced their bookings with the rewards account Kyle used. Same hotel, same dates. Room 123 in Denver. Room 917 in Phoenix. Room 401 in Tampa. I didn't ask how Vic got it. I didn't care. My job was not to moralize the process, just to ensure it was thorough. I booked the same hotel she stayed at last. Intercontinental Phoenix, requested room 917, used a different name, business account. Vic had a technician meet me there under the guise of furniture maintenance. He opened the desk drawer, pulled it all the way out, and unscrewed the frame underneath. Inside, he mounted a GPS tile, small, silent, legal in the state since I wasn't recording audio. Just presence, location, dates. We tucked it back in. No one would know it was there unless they had a blueprint and a crowbar. While the technician worked, I took photos. The minibar list, the room service menu, the signature on the check-in log from her last visit. In her handwriting, but under her maiden name. A detail I almost respected in a warped way. She wasn't just cheating. She was role-playing. I printed the photo of the signature, placed it in a folder labeled Field Evidence, added a receipt from a steakhouse 2 blocks from the hotel, 1 table, 2 entrees, 1 shared dessert. Timestamp 9:42 p.m. The same night she told me over FaceTime she had a headache and was turning in early. Back at home, I took screenshots of the GPS logs over the last 3 trips. Same coordinates, same rooms. I even caught one day where she left the hotel just after Kyle's GPS ping did, within 7 minutes of each other. Different directions. Same exit door. It wasn't revenge, it was inventory. I compiled everything, photos, metadata, location logs, even her work calendar entries that conveniently omitted every single one of those cities, and emailed them to my attorney. Subject line, additional documentation, travel overlap and asset misrepresentation. Then I deleted the originals from my hard drive, backed up the folder to a locked cloud directory with 2-factor authentication, and printed hard copies, which I stored at my brother's place under the title Tax Receipts 2082 in an old filing cabinet he never used. I poured a drink and stared at the wall, not to mourn, just to calibrate. People always say, I'd rather know the truth, no matter how ugly. They're lying. Most people want a story that flatters their ego, a spouse who might be cheating, a few hints they can weaponize in an argument. They want just enough to feed the drama, not enough to end it. I wanted the end, not her tears, not her explanation, not her guilt-ridden speech about how lost she felt or how disconnected we became. I didn't need closure. I needed proof. And now I had it. There was a quiet power in knowing I could walk into that hotel room and smell the betrayal. Not metaphorically, literally. Her shampoo, the cologne she never bought me, the texture of the sheets she picked for someone else. And yet, there I stood, unmoved, no shouting, no drinking myself into a corner, just cataloging. People say infidelity is about intimacy. It isn't. It's about choice. The daily, casual choice to lie to someone who would have bled for you. She made her choice in Tampa, in Dallas, in Phoenix. I was just making mine louder, cleaner, final. Her Instagram story that morning was a grainy shot of hotel lobby coffee with the caption, "Another day of meetings, conference grind, #team hustle." I zoomed in. The background gave it away. Not the corporate suite she claimed, but the artisan lobby of a boutique hotel in Scottsdale. The same one she once told me was too expensive for our anniversary. No team in sight. Just a single cappuccino, no conference badge, and the same gold bracelet I gave her for our 20th. A detail too small for her to notice, but too loud for me to ignore. While she was busy curating a fiction, I was busy restructuring a reality she'd assumed was permanent. First step, the will. I contacted my estate attorney, a meticulous man with no sense of humor and the temperament of a calculator. We met in his office, leather chairs, oil paintings, thick silence. I handed him the current version of my living will. She's no longer the executor. Remove her. He adjusted his glasses. Do you have a successor in mind? Yes, my niece Danielle. She's a CPA, and she's not sleeping with sales reps from Phoenix. He blinked, didn't comment, just wrote. We changed the beneficiaries, removed the house from her potential assets, created a clause for early dissolution of marriage due to infidelity, legal, enforceable, and buried in the language so deep her lawyer would need a bloodhound to sniff it out. Next stop, the bank. I arrived precisely at 9:00 a.m. The bank manager, Shelley, greeted me like she always had. Warm smile, business casual armor. She asked about Sandra. I said she's away on business and left it at that. I requested a private room, brought out every document, power of attorney, prenup, will, updates in progress. I want the joint credit line frozen, I said. Fraud concerns. Shelley hesitated. You'll need a basis. I slid the receipts across the table. Flights I never took, dinners I never attended, spa charges from hotels in cities I hadn't seen in 5 years. Let's call it unverified activity, I said. She nodded. 10 minutes later, the joint line was frozen. New cards would be issued to me alone. I shredded the old one in her office, let the strips fall like confetti. The savings were next. I didn't drain them. That would have triggered alerts she might see. Instead, I moved 2/3 to a temporary account under my brother's name, linked through a legal proxy we'd set up during his custody battle years ago. Irony has a funny sense of timing. The rest I converted into a short-term trust. Locked, unreachable without my biometric access and 3 separate keys, one of which I mailed to my lawyer in a sealed envelope marked only in case of death or disappearance. She used to tell her friends I was weirdly old-fashioned about money, said I still printed bank statements, said I didn't trust the cloud. She was right. And now it was working against her. Back at home, I opened our safe. Inside were old tax returns, her grandmother's brooch, and the deed to the lake house. I removed the deed, photographed it, noted the registration ID, filed a quitclaim deed transfer into a trust. Again, not illegal, not aggressive, just preventative. She wouldn't know until it was over, until she stood on the porch one day and realized the name on the mailbox had changed without ceremony, without warning, just gone. The final piece was insurance. I called our agent, said I needed to update my beneficiaries, removed her from every policy, life, auto, home, disability, even the long-term care clause we signed back in 2009 after her dad's stroke. She's no longer eligible, I said. Divorce? Imminent. He paused. You're handling it well. I'm not handling it, I replied. I'm restructuring it. My phone buzzed that afternoon. A text from her. Miss you. Can't wait to be home. Phoenix is exhausting. I didn't reply, just screenshotted it and filed it under pretense messaging. That night, the family attorney called. You're moving quickly, he said. Maybe too quickly. You might want to slow down. Be cautious. I stared out the window at the empty driveway. The house was quiet, cleaner somehow. I'm done with caution. He didn't argue, because the truth is, caution is for people who think they still have something to salvage. I wasn't salvaging anything. I was stripping it down to the studs. Every asset, every account, every document she thought she'd be entitled to. She spent months eroding the marriage one lie at a time. I was just matching her effort with paperwork. It arrived on a Tuesday. No warning, no subject line. Just a link and a private message from Vic, my consultant. You'll want to see this. Timestamp 2043. I clicked it. The grainy footage came from a bar camera. One of those discreet dome models mounted in the corner, barely noticed by anyone not actively avoiding a subpoena. The lighting was warm, filtered gold over dark wood and overpriced whiskey, and there she was, her hair curled, makeup done, not too much, just enough to look naturally radiant, the kind of artificial glow she used to mock when younger women wore it. She was leaning forward on a bar stool, laughing. Not the laugh she gave me, that one had died years ago, replaced by polite chuckles over bland dinners. No, this was different, loose, rehearsed, a laugh designed to be received, admired. Across from her was Kyle, tan, perfectly disheveled, smug in that way only men who've never had to apologize properly can be. He wasn't even facing her directly. His body was angled, drink in hand, free arm resting on her leg. I paused the video. His hand was on her knee, comfortable, casual, familiar. I hit play. She leaned in close, mouth near his ear, whispered something. He laughed. Smug bastard. Lifted his glass. They clinked. It wasn't the clink that got me. It was the synchronized confidence of it, like they were sealing a deal, toasting a conquest. There was no sound, but I didn't need it. I could feel the volume of it. The intimacy, the betrayal didn't shout. It smirked. I watched the clip once. Just once. Then I dragged it into a folder I'd labeled for court use only. Tucked it alongside the receipts, the GPS data, the reservation overlap summaries. It fit in perfectly, like the final piece of a jagged puzzle I never asked to solve. I closed the laptop, sat back, let the silence settle around me like dust. It wasn't pain. Not anymore. That stage had passed. Quietly, a few weeks back, somewhere between her third trip to Phoenix and her second lie about a mandatory team dinner. I had expected to feel a punch to the gut watching the footage, maybe a crack in the chest, a wave of nausea, but all I felt was validation, like watching the ending of a movie you already knew by heart. She really thinks I'm the fool, I muttered, more amused than bitter. Then out loud, just to myself, in the stillness of that room, I'm not the fool here. Because fools react, fools beg, fools confront, and I wasn't doing any of that. I was documenting. She once told a friend at a dinner party, after too much wine, that I was dispassionately responsible, that I didn't do drama. Said it like it was a flaw, like calm was some kind of character defect. She was about to learn what dispassionately responsible really meant. It meant I didn't shout when I found out about Kyle. I didn't throw her clothes in the driveway or post cryptic quotes online. I filed documents. I changed locks. I rerouted assets. While she toasted in boutique bars and posed for conference selfies, I dismantled everything she took for granted, brick by brick, clause by clause. There was a time I would have forgiven her, not forgotten. Never that. But maybe in another life, I would have sat across from her in a therapist's office while she cried, and I nodded through the pain. I would have accepted the blame she tried to redistribute, let her call it a mistake, let her repaint it as a symptom of our emotional drift. Not anymore. That video changed something. Not because of what they did. I already knew. But because of how she looked while doing it. She was happy, carefree. That was the cut that didn't bleed. The moment I knew she wasn't tortured by this, she wasn't conflicted. She was thriving in her deception. And that's when the last ember of whatever I still felt for her burned out. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was a liability in a pantsuit, a strategic threat with legal access to my future. And I had no intention of letting her keep the keys. By the time she clinked that glass, I'd already signed the divorce papers. The moment her laugh echoed in that silent footage, I had already changed the beneficiaries. She didn't know it yet, but her toast that night was to a life she'd already lost. The only thing left was to let the silence finish the job. My attorney called at 6:42 a.m., his voice sharp, professional, with the edge of someone who had finally seen all the cards laid out on the table. "It's done," he said. "Draft's clean. Based on the prenup, she walks with the minimum. No alimony. Her access to joint assets is frozen. You want to add anything?" I was still in my robe, coffee untouched. Sunlight was starting to creep through the blinds like it had no idea the war room it was entering. "Include the documentation," I said. "The hotel receipts, the footage, all of it. I want her legal team to choke on the evidence." He cleared his throat. "You understand this could escalate. She'll contest, fight ugly, might even try to play the sympathy card." I smiled without humor. "Good, let her. Her mascara won't hold up in court." He chuckled. "You want me to hold off until she's back in town?" I looked at my phone. Her last message was from the night before. "Long day. Might extend the trip. Love you." She thought she had time, thought she could string this along, sip overpriced cocktails next to Kyle while pretending she was still the wife of the man who paid the mortgage. I wasn't waiting. "No," I said. "We send it now. She'll receive it mid-trip." Perfect timing. A silence on the line, then, "You're certain?" I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The next half hour moved like clockwork. The courier was scheduled, a legal packet prepared, Return receipt required. Digital backups were already encrypted and shared with a second legal team. Insurance in case she'd decide to start deleting emails or tossing devices into hotel trash bins. The cover letter was my idea, clear, emotionless, and signed with my full name. Mrs. Hanson, please see the enclosed dissolution paperwork initiated under Clause 6C of the marital agreement signed July 2001. Due to documented infidelity and financial misrepresentation, standard terms under California law will not apply. You are advised to seek legal counsel within 72 hours of receipt. MH. Her lawyer wouldn't even make it to the fourth line before realizing she was cornered. Every clause in that prenup had been activated like a tripwire she didn't know she'd stepped on. We drafted it in the early years, back when she still laughed at my bad jokes and used the word forever without flinching. I didn't write it expecting to use it, but I wrote it right. My lawyer at the time was a family friend who'd been divorced twice. He told me the people you trust most should be the ones you protect yourself from most, just in case. Turned out to be good advice. In the time it took her to sip a mimosa poolside, my life was restructured. I leaned back in my chair, opened the window, let the cold air in. There was no shaking, no second thoughts, just the sharp click of decisions locking into place. Somewhere in Arizona, she was probably laughing again. Maybe Kyle was ordering eggs. Maybe she was already plotting how to spin her absence. A family emergency, a last-minute presentation, whatever thin narrative she thought would get her back in the house without raising suspicion. She had no idea she'd already been locked out, metaphorically, legally, and soon, physically. Vic texted me minutes later. Packet scanned by hotel front desk, handed off at 9:13 a.m. Perfect. I didn't gloat, didn't pour a drink. I opened a clean Word document and typed a checklist. Phase 1, initiated, legal severance initiated, prenup enforced, joint account frozen, executor rights revoked, security documentation delivered. Phase 2, execution, change locks, transfer title on secondary properties, forward mail to P.O. Box, notify inner circle, preempt narrative. She once joked that if I ever left her, I'd do it like a business merger. Cold, contractual, seamless. She was right. Because this wasn't rage, this was satisfaction at the molecular level, the kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to win someone back and start building the world they no longer get to be part of. Let her sip, let her laugh, let her pretend she's still in control. By the time she realizes what's happening, she'll be standing in the ashes of something she thought was unshakable, and I won't be there to explain it. Oh, and if you're still listening without hitting that follow button, maybe rethink that. If you've ever been underestimated by a spouse, a boss, a so-called friend, this story isn't just for you. It is you. And trust me, it's just getting started. Tuesday morning, 10:08 a.m. My phone lit up with a notification. Her contact photo, still the one from 5 years ago, the version of her before the edits, before the scripts, before she started rehearsing who she was in the mirror every morning. The message was short. Hey, trip extended again. You okay? I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen like a man deciding which wire to cut, but there were no wires, no explosives. Just the clean, mechanical hum of a system she no longer controlled. I typed 3 words. No rush. Divorce process just started. Sent. The read receipt came seconds later. Delivered. Read 10:09 a.m. Then the dots. Those 3 pathetic dots that always promise more than they deliver. She started typing, stopped, started again, stopped, and then, nothing. I imagined her face in that exact moment, phone in hand. Confused maybe, disoriented, the fragile logic she'd built over the past few months, that I was clueless, soft, a background prop in her side story, now crashing against something hard, sharp, real. I put the phone face down and took a sip of coffee. Exactly 1 hour later, my lawyer's number flashed on the screen. She just called, he said, panicked, accused us of ambushing her. She's not wrong, I said. We did, it just took longer than it should have. She wants to talk, asked if there's any way to reverse the filing. I laughed, quietly, not cruel, just resolved. Did you explain the difference between delayed and denied? He sighed. I did. Good. Then I went into my phone settings and hit block this caller. Her name vanished from my contacts. No dramatic music, no confirmation pop-up asking if I was sure. Just gone. An hour later, a new number rang, area code I didn't recognize. I blocked it, then another. Blocked that too. By noon, I blocked 6 numbers. One voicemail made it through before I shut off the inbox. Her voice was shaky, trembling at first, then rising into that familiar defensive pitch, the one she used when she didn't feel guilty yet, just caught. Malcolm, this isn't fair. You can't just blindside me like this. Can we please talk? This isn't who we are. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer. He filed it under post-service response, attempted contact. It didn't hurt, not anymore. There was no rush of adrenaline, no ache in the chest, just a strange stillness, like the eye of a storm that's already passed, leaving only broken branches and silence behind. And that's what people like her never understand. It's not the screaming that signals the end. It's the silence, the refusal to engage, the complete absence of reaction. I wasn't playing her game. I'd already built my own. She could text, call, beg, rationalize, all from the other side of a firewall that was now airtight. And this wasn't just emotional, it was tactical. I'd already alerted my inner circle, sent the facts to my siblings, my attorney, my broker. No gossip, no drama, just timestamps, documents, legal summaries. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted truth with a paper trail, the kind that lives beyond manipulation. She had underestimated me. That was her first mistake. Her second was assuming I needed her to stay. That evening, I sat on the deck with a glass of scotch and my old dog sleeping at my feet. The wind rustled the leaves. A plane passed overhead. Somewhere, she was pacing a hotel room, phone in hand, rehearsing her next line, maybe texting Kyle, maybe not, maybe realizing for the first time that affairs come with consequences beyond guilt. I'd said nothing when I suspected. I'd said nothing when I knew. But when I moved without noise, without warning, and without mercy. By the time she felt the tremor, the earthquake had already happened. There was nothing left for her to say, and no number left that could reach me. Wednesday, 5:47 p.m. A black car pulls into the driveway. Her beige trench coat, sunglasses too big for her face, dragging a carry-on that probably still smells like his cologne. She steps out, glances at the lawn like it's unfamiliar, punches the garage code into the keypad with one finger. Nothing. She tries again, slower this time. You can almost hear the mental math. Maybe she misremembered it. Maybe something glitched. Maybe the power went out. That sliver of delusion, still flickering. She opens her purse, fishes out her key, walks up to the front door. Click. Turn. No give. She jiggles it, harder now, like the lock might apologize and let her in out of pity. But the truth is, I'd changed it 2 days earlier. Hardware store run at 7 o'clock a.m., locksmith by 10:30, receipts filed under home maintenance. Not because I needed the security, but because I wanted her to feel it, right here at the threshold. She calls. Once, twice, I let it ring, watched the screen light up from across the room. Her name still popped up as Sandra Wife in my caller ID, a last poetic touch. I let it ring out, then blocked the number again, just for good measure. She leaves a voicemail I'll never listen to. 10 minutes later, a courier car pulls up. The driver steps out, crisp uniform, no expression, and walks up to her like it's just another delivery. Package for Sandra Hansen, he says. She nods, takes it without reading the return label. Her hands shake. She knows. Some part of her knows. She opens the envelope standing there on the porch, suitcase by her feet, light starting to fade. First page, divorce petition, filed and served. Second page, statement of assets and liabilities, her name absent from every meaningful line. Third, a notarized log of financial activity, annotated, dated, cross-referenced. Fourth, a screenshot, hotel check-in timestamp, room 911 scene. 2 guests. Fifth, still image from bar footage, her hand on his knee. No sound, just implication. Last page, a yellow sticky note handwritten in plain block letters. You made your choices, I made mine. No signature, none needed. She reads it 3 times. Something in her posture changes. Not sudden, not cinematic, just a slump, like her spine finally recognized the weight of what she'd built. Or rather, what she dismantled one lie at a time. She doesn't cry, not yet. That comes later, in private. First comes confusion, then denial, then the unsteady realization that she's not returning to a home. She's arriving at a crime scene. And the fingerprints are hers. She tries the garage code one more time, slower, like it might show mercy if she's polite. Nothing. She sits on the porch steps, flipping through the folder, lips pressed tight, eyes scanning for a loophole that isn't there. No alarm, no yelling neighbors, just birds, wind, the dull scrape of her suitcase tipping over. Across the street, the Johnson kid rides his bike past, headphones in, doesn't even glance her way. She's already invisible. The same house she once decorated with throw pillows and scented candles. Now a fortress she can't enter. The marriage bed she used as a launch pad for deception. Now legally categorized under separate property. Everything she thought she could control, the narrative, the assets, the man, gone. And not in a blaze, but in precise, silent, irreversible steps. There's a special kind of dread that sets in when you realize the final scene already happened while you were still smiling for the camera. She had smiled in selfies, posted cappuccinos, laughed in dim-lit bars, all while the scaffolding of her security was quietly being disassembled by the man she thought too passive to fight back. And now, no key, no home, no version of the truth that could save her. She takes out her phone, tries another number, blocked, another blocked, sends a text. Malcolm, please. I watch it arrive, don't open it, I swipe it away like lint. I open a different app, one tied to the new security system. Camera view, front porch, Sandra, folder in hand, head down. I tap mute, because now I only want the footage, not the sound. The rest? That's for the record. She picked the cafe. I let her. Neutral ground, broad windows, mid-morning traffic humming past, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever happens. Smells like burnt espresso and denial. She arrived early, of course. Already seated, already fragile, hair pulled back tight like it might hold her together, sunglasses on the table like a shield she couldn't keep up anymore. Her hands were wrapped around a coffee she hadn't sipped. When I walked in, she stood quickly, reflexive. I didn't offer a hug, just nodded and took the seat across from her. The gap between us felt like a canyon. Thank you for meeting me, she said, voice wobbling on the edge of tears. I said nothing, let silence fill the first 5 seconds. Then calm, measured. You wanted this talk. So talk. She blinked, stung already. I could see the scripts fighting in her brain. Start with regret. Pivot to nostalgia. Sprinkle in panic. I know I messed up. I do, she said. But it wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was just, I don't know. A phase, a stupid one. I thought we were drifting. I thought you didn't care anymore. Her voice cracked on drifting. She looked at me, eyes wet but still rehearsed. You thought I didn't care? I repeated, nodding once. Interesting. I didn't mean to hurt you, she added quickly, like that might diffuse something. You didn't mean to hurt me, I echoed, slower this time. But you did. She reached across the table, hand open like a peace offering. I didn't move. I was lost, Malcolm. I was afraid we were over. We were, I said. You just realized it too late. That stopped her. She drew her hand back, fingers curling slightly like the apology had recoiled. I didn't expect this, she whispered. You were always so steady. I am steady. I'm not vengeful. I'm not cruel. I'm just done. She tried to smile like maybe this could be salvaged. Maybe we can go to therapy. We've got years together. That has to count for something. I looked at her for a long moment. Let the weight of that land before answering. It does count. It counted enough that I gave you every chance to be honest. It counted enough that I stayed silent while you drifted so far you didn't think I could see you. And when you finally disappeared, I didn't chase you. I watched. Her eyes shimmered. So that's it? You're just going to erase me? I leaned in slightly, just enough to lower my voice. No, you erased yourself. I just filed the paperwork. She blinked rapidly, like tears might undo the last 6 months. But we're still us. I smiled at that, not warmly. The moment you left, I stopped being yours. I just needed time to prove it. That landed. I watched her chest fall as she exhaled, deflated. You were always so quiet, she said. I didn't think you had this in you. That's your problem, I said, leaning back. You thought silence meant weakness. It meant calculation. A beat passed. I don't want to be the villain in your story, she said finally. You're not, I said. You're just not in it anymore. We sat in that silence. Cars passed outside. Someone steamed milk behind the counter. A bell dinged. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking now. I really did love you. I nodded. Maybe, but not enough to choose me. She wiped a tear, tried to laugh. It came out as a cracked exhale. I miss who we were, she whispered. So do I said. But he's gone, and so is she. I stood up. She didn't follow, just stared at the coffee that had gone cold. As I reached the door, she called out softly, Malcolm? I paused, turned halfway, didn't step back. What happens now? You rebuild, I said, but not with me. Then I left. No door slam, no glance back, just walked into the light of the day, free of the weight she still thought I carried. 3 weeks later, the house sold, not listed publicly, not dragged through the MLS circus, just a quiet, private transaction arranged through a family trust. The papers were signed on a Thursday, notarized in the same conference room where we'd once refinanced to redo the kitchen she insisted was too outdated for guests. Now it belonged to a surgeon who'd never met her, and never would. The deed, the mortgage, the lawn, the locks, all passed on to someone else without a single item of hers left inside. I'd packed up what little was legally hers and had it delivered to a storage unit in her name. One box was labeled kitchen, even though I knew she hadn't cooked in years. Another was marked personal. It held an old frame photo from Maui and the perfume she wore when she first met Kyle. Let her unpack those memories on her own time. She tried contesting the sale through a lawyer who probably promised her something in return for his hourly rate. But the prenup was airtight, reinforced with fresh evidence, clean dates, metadata, and the digital footprint of someone too arrogant to delete her browser history. Everything she touched was accounted for. Everything she assumed she was entitled to had been legally, irrevocably reclassified. She sent one email, subject line, "We need to talk." I didn't open it. I didn't block her either. That would have implied emotional labor. This was simpler. I marked it as read, archived it, and set up an autofilter. Any message from her would go to a folder labeled past tense. Then I left town. Not far, just far enough. A coastal town where cell reception is spotty and no one knows what the word alimony means. I bought a small house, 1 story, big windows, wood floors that creak like they're proud of their age. No shared furniture, no wedding photos, nothing with history. Just clean lines and quiet space. The neighbors don't ask questions. The woman who owns the bookstore calls me sir, even though we're probably the same age. I go there every Thursday, buy 1 paperback I probably won't finish, and sit by the ocean with a coffee that tastes like freedom. There's no echo of her voice, no scent of her lotion in the bathroom drawers, no reminders, just air. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. A friend from the city. She's asking around, wants to talk, says she just wants closure. I read it twice, then typed back, tell her I'm finally on a real work trip, one that doesn't end. Then I deleted the thread, not out of bitterness, not out of spite, because there was nothing else to say. I didn't need to watch her unravel. I didn't need to see her regret. That wasn't the point. The point was removal. Not a revenge story, not a redemption arc, just a man who chose peace over performance, a man who stepped out of the storm instead of trying to outshout it. She'd played her game, I played mine longer, and in the end, she was left texting into silence, while I was finally somewhere she couldn't touch.